All right. I think we're live. We're doing this. Middle of the day for me on a Wednesday. Had a little bit of free time, canceled some meetings. Been working way too much, and so I thought let's take a break. Yes, behind me you can see this tank is undergoing some changes. There's nets in there. There is 2 fish left that I cannot catch out of there, or at least I couldn't yesterday. You can see the stuff you see swimming around are actually shrimp. And yeah, there's 2 more Cyprichromis in there that need to come out so I can start planting and putting fish in, like the eel and other things. So yeah, let me grab this chat here. Boom, pop the chat out. We're going to start right from the beginning. Question: does Irene from Girls Talk Fish, hold on, there we go. Does Irene from Girls Talk Fish, was Irene, okay, that's, sentence wasn't making sense. Was Irene from Girls Talk Fish the social media rep for Aquariumcoop, or did she just use a ton of their products in her videos? Irene still actually works with us. I had a meeting with her 2 days ago. I mean, I meet with her every week at this point, but yeah, she still works, is on our social media team. She's actually social media manager. I don't know what her official title is. Manager? Social media manager? Something like that. Project manager? Yeah, still totally works for us. You'll actually see a video coming out from her, I don't know, and within the next month. We just dial back on that a lot. And as if you're watching her channel, she said she's had some health issues and things. So being that she wasn't doing videos there, we kind of dialed it back here as well. But she does such a good job, especially at explaining things. So next up, do we think we'll switch it up and talk about reptiles today? We definitely could, even though I don't know very much about it. But I will say, we do get info and updates and stuff like that. And we just received one that, like, ZoomEd's going to have to discontinue a lot of their lighting products in the reptile world. And it's a law, I assume it's a law, government law, regulation, something like that. Light bulbs have to produce at least 65 lumens per watt. That doesn't lend itself very well to heat. Sorry, I just ate lunch. Heat lamps and those types of products, different UVA products. So there's like a laundry list of bulbs that are gonna be very hard to find for a while unless they can counteract that or increase the light output, which isn't always wanted for reptiles, right? You might have a species that's darker, dimmer lit that you want, maybe it's more cave dweller, that kind of stuff. So, kind of one of those, running into government regulations problems. In fact, we have the same issue with our easy carbon. In fact, I'm not even allowed to say what the issue about it is, because that'll just get me into trouble. But we are working through paperwork, and that's why it's not being sold on the website or in the retail store currently for easy carbon. So some people have been asking, where'd that go? And yeah, I think I could say the government entity, but it's just easier for me not to do that. And so we're working with a government entity to fill out some paperwork so that our product meets I want to make sure I don't walk into a trap here, the right, classified correctly, maybe that's the right thing. So yeah, that's it. It definitely wasn't unlocked. Like, okay, that's why other companies treat this product this way. I get it. So yeah, let's see here. Chris Lookup's in the chat hanging out. Good to see you, Chris. Let's see. I need to change the resolution on this monitor. It's like I'm a little too squinty of I'm having a hard time reading. Which I could probably do right here. Let me soup that up for a second here. We're gonna go zoom. There we go. I can read now. I'm pretty sure I'm just getting old. Everything's changing, and by that I mean I'm just getting old. All right, let me get the chat set up here. Good content, I know. I wish I could order more from the Aquariumcoop, but I want to support my local fish store. It has so many plants, even though your plants are amazing. Yeah, it is my job to sell stuff online and my own retail store, but I will also champion if you have a good local mom and pop type store, it could be a chain, I guess, but you know that your money's kind of being spent in the same area, and there's good people behind it, and they want to support their employees, and they care about the health of the animals. By all means, buying local is better for the environment in general, or at least can be. I'll say can be, because there's some stores that are buying in small quantities. If you start palletizing, and that can be very good too sometimes. So yeah, I don't have problems when people go, "Hey, I'm going to buy my stuff local." I go, "Good on you." I like it when you buy it from us, but maybe your local store will carry our products one day, and if you want them to, you can always tell them, "Hey, carry Aquariumcoop stuff." Then I don't have to order from them, and then we both win. Casual aquatics. I can't stay because I'm in work, but Corey, as always, you're awesome. It's always super awkward to read, by the way. You kind of get into it and you're like, "Oh, this is just going to be a sentence about how I'm awesome." That's like self-gloating. But then I have to finish it. So everyone else, stay casual. Tell them you love them. Life's too short. There you go. Words to live by. Best way to make a DIY lid that looks good. Yeah. So either A, buy hinges. You can buy the hinge material if you dig around on the internet enough, and then have glass cut to fit at a local glass shop. Last time I did that was like 15 years ago, but it was only like $4 a piece. Had to call a few shops. Some only wanted to do $30,000 window jobs. But once I found one that would actually cut glass, they're like, "Yeah, that's all you want? Like, it's $4 a piece and then 50 cents to sand the edges." And I was like, "All right, let's do this." And I bought all the glass for my fish room. But you could also cut them yourself and do that process. And then there's the other way, which I do like, is using... I'll have to do a video on this because it is starting to fall out from the internet. Like, there's some videos around, but use this. I forget what it's exact. I think it's used to hold a certain type of board, like a plastic board on a wall, and it's basically got a channel for something to go back and forth in, and then another channel. And so you can put the back glass inside, you put the front glass on top, and you can move the glass back and forth really easily that way. That's really great if you have tanks on end as opposed to wide. The wider your tank is, the less that sliding system works because it wants to kind of go wonky on you. Any plans to sell new mounts for the co-op light? I would love to set mine higher to keep the mineral buildup on the lens less. Well, I would tell you, first, use a top. I know there's going to be, let's say there's 20% of the people or 10% of the people are like, "I don't like the look of tops." Sure. But the other 90% of the rest of the humans use a glass top. You save energy with heating. You lose less fish, shrimp, and snails from getting out of the tank. You have way less evaporation, less humidity in your home. There's so many benefits to that. Oh, not to mention preventing calcium buildup on your light. But to answer the original question, will we launch mounts? Maybe. We go back and forth on, is this the time to do the R&D on something that'll help a fraction of people? And the reason why is the people in my company know it's not just, here's a mount, it'll work. I got to go down the rabbit hole on this thing. So I already am like, well, how are we going to make it adjustable? And can we make it so it automatically would be set up to mount into a canopy and then also be able to mount to the ceiling with some spider wire system? And I'm making the most complex mousetrap when you can basically hop on Etsy right now and for like $20 buy some risers. And you'd be like, "Oh, do you want the 4-inch ones, the 6-inch ones, the 12-inch ones, whatever it is?" And so is my time right today best spent doing that? It's like, well, probably not, but maybe it is in a year. And then we go, "Hey, look, we've released them," right? So at the moment, it's on the list, but it's in a low priority zone. We have these boards that we run basically, and it's every time we think of an idea or a need, we put it, and we just keep like sorting and prioritizing and trying to attack the next biggest thing. And sometimes it's product development, sometimes it's videos, sometimes it's moving a warehouse, sometimes it's we need to do more live events, like whatever it is. And so we just kind of start working top down, like, yep, we've had that on the list a long time to work on that. Why do you never see Angelicus loaches anymore? I think they're just getting expensive and they're not as easily mass bred. Or it's not that they might not be as easy, but they're just not as massively bred. And so they're not on lists as much, where like clown loaches are always there. Angelicus loaches aren't always there. And I'm not specifically sure why that reason is. It is a great fish, but clown loaches, because they get bigger, because they have more vibrant color, they tend to sell easier. Angelicus loaches are an amazing pet, but they don't have that same grab in the fish store. So maybe that's like, maybe on super big numbers, they don't make the cut in some farms. Buying gift memberships is now available on the phone. All right, good to know. I know what I'll be doing next month. Great to read everyone here. I'll be listening. Don't forget to like. Yeah. I saw some new easy potassium bottles. Yeah, in fact, I've got prototypes and stuff right here. This is, when it comes to a liquid, it's basically, we get, a lot of times it'll be different strengths. Sometimes it'll be multiple products I'll be testing at the same time. And this one is basically full except for a little bit of what I was doing. I've got some other ones that I've used way more obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. I always say obviously, and I use obviously incorrectly like 90% of the time, because I always catch myself and I go, well, it's not obvious. It's obvious to me, but not obvious to others. So I've got a real bad habit about just obviously that's the case. But you can also see here if you're pixel peeping. Wait. New cap system testing out. Eventually, I do believe we'll go to caps, because pump heads have problems. They get broken in shipping. People have to install them at retail stores. Technically, it might save some plastic. And I say might because I'd really have to look into that to see if it saves it. But because we ship these things with a cap and then another pump head, this would just be the cap and the dispensing system. But yes, we're going through some rounds of caps too. Don't worry. They're not just the average cap. So, yeah. Holy guacamole, do I need potassium? My Java ferns suck up potassium like a vacuum. They can sometimes. The big thing, I've held out on potassium for a really long time because I believe 90% of customers or more don't need to buy potassium. I also think the same thing with easy iron. But when we see new people come to the hobby, they typically just buy it all. You know everybody, and maybe you've been this person yourself, where you're like, you just have boxes of chemicals. You're like, well, I'm going to try the thing and see if it does it, right? And there are instances where potassium's needed. You have a tank, if this tank back here was filled with Java ferns and Anubias, it's going to consume a lot of potassium. But if it's only got some and a bunch of other plants, Easy Green would just be fine. Easy Green already has like the maximum amount of potassium you can put in. So this is essentially Easy Green without all the other stuff. It's just the potassium. Like, you can only get so much into the water. We've already Easy Green's already maxed out on that. So the potassium would be just in addition to that. And you can also have instances where, like I'm on a well here, I don't really have this problem, but I could have nitrites, nitrates, phosphates, iron. I do have iron in the water. You could have a lot of these building blocks in your natural water. And if you did, it might be hard to use Easy Green plus that, because you might be like, well, I've just got way too much phosphate now, or some other ingredient, right? Because maybe you have tons and tons of iron because you're on a well, and Easy Green also has iron, and maybe you're getting some algae because of that. So then you might go, okay, well, I need to dose each individual thing. That'd be the other use case. And then there's some use cases in super highlight, high CO2 tanks where you're really pushing the bounds and you're using specific plants that you would also need potassium in excess. But all three of those cases, I think, are in that 10%, and we run the risk of confusing the 90% of like, ooh, it's a fertilizer, I better buy that one. Because so many companies do just say, if you buy all the fertilizers, stuff will happen. And the goal was, with Easy Green, to make it easy and make it like a one product thing. And now we're going, well, there is this 10% subsect we should help, because we're watching them buy our competitors' products. if we do a good enough job in marketing, hopefully there won't be a lot of confused buyers going, well, I bought both. You're telling me I don't need both? Like, yeah, you don't need both for most people. Yeah, the pumps I've had problems, but the Aquarium Co-op pump are like bulletproof. I still, to this day, have never broken an Aquarium Co-op pump head. Now, that we see the customer service, and part of this is scale. We've talked about this before, where the amounts of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of bottles we sell just every month, when you get like, well, 17 people had a problem with the pump head. Some people literally can't open it. They literally like, it didn't work. And you're like, did you turn it? And they're like, oh, yeah, it works. There's ones that also like, it got Ace Ventura, dropped off, the Eiffel Tower, landed, and the pump head broke in shipping. That happens. And then there's some that, like, the most common one, I would say, is the pump stops working because it got blocked up. Well, yeah, you're squirting nutrients through it. And if you don't shake out the extra ones at the end of the thing or dip it in the water, those are eventually going to get crusty. And then you're like, hey, the thing doesn't work. And then there's also like, yep, the spring or whatever, like there's just a physical defect. These are a very cheap item, manufactured millions at a time. And 0.1% of all of them are just going to be DOA or just have a problem with them. But let me finish that, because that's not the whole story. We did have a bad run, I would say, or lower quality pump heads during COVID, when everybody was buying hand sanitizer and we couldn't even get, like, we were lucky to even get pump heads. And those ones were less reliable than the ones we have today, for sure. But even then, I still never had one fail. Like, it's the easiest thing, if any of you do any kind of troubleshooting, it's so much easier when you, the person that needs to fix it, can replicate the problem. Because you go, oh, let me keep doing this till I fix it. I literally have stacks of pump heads. Like, they come to me in bags, and I'm trying to devise ways. I'm beating on them. I sit them on my desk and I do this for days, like a pen, just trying to go, is it reps? Am I just not getting enough? Like, what is the difference? So being that I can't see and repeat the way in which it would fail, I'm not able to, like, here's the thing we need to look for in the new pump head we'd be looking for. So, but so one of the things also, I personally am going to like this cap, because one, I'm going to design it and it's dope. But two, it also doubles like, oh, I need to dose some Icex. Oh, I need to dose another product from another company that doesn't have a cap like this. And it even doses 1 milliliter. I won't show you how it does it yet, but a lot of them don't do 1 milliliter, but 1 milliliter treats 10 gallons. One pump is 1 milliliter. One pump, 10 gallons. We need to make sure that easy green is still easy with 1 milliliter equals 10 gallons and make it easy for you. So if you got a 10-gallon tank, 1 milliliter, boom, done. Let's see here. Working on spawning some Fungilopancheck Sheelii I got from Lucas Bretz. What's our opinion on why killies aren't popular in the US? I think it's all a marketing problem. There's a lot of the killies that aren't just annuals. They're actually very easy to spawn, in my opinion. They're super duper colorful. They will hop out the minute you have any hole in your top, but that's like the only bad thing they got going for them. And then there's groups B and C, where you have substrate peat spawners and you have annuals. But for the most part, I think it's just a marketing thing. I think if for some reason I wanted to, I spent a year just routinely showing super cool killifish, people would get into them. And they don't even have to be rare. Like, I love Australia killifish. I love Gardnerite killifish. The Sheelii are amazing too. They're all easy to spawn. They're all like fairly cheap. You get them for like 20 to 30 bucks a pair max. You don't have to heat them. They're pretty easy to feed. You can get blue galaris, which get nice and big. Those are fun too. I think that would catch on, because people are like, wow, these are awesome. Now, I will say one of the detriments to them is that they do have pretty large mouths for the fish size, and they will just gobble up a shrimp. And so people love shrimp and like, oh, I don't know if I want to lose my shrimpies, right? So you would have to overcome that. But I do believe we keep so many fish anyway that eat shrimp we may as well be keeping these beauties. They don't live super duper long, like maybe 3 or 4 years. So that's another detriment. But the average person in a planted tank could spawn them and raise up more. But probably the people in the chat here, we don't realize that the majority of fish keepers don't even keep live plants. That is a hard concept to wrap your brain around of all the fish keepers, the ones keeping a goldfish in a bowl, the one that joined the hobby yesterday, the one that only has a local Walmart supplying them, whatever the version is, that is the majority, and the majority don't even have live plants in their aquarium. So if they don't have live plants, they're probably not having shrimps, and they probably wouldn't be spawning killies either. And so they're just seen as that's an expensive fish. It looks cool. Females don't look that cool. I only want the boys. But when you get a group of them going, it's really fun. I'm getting Apistos for the first time soon. Any tips for keeping them? My number one tip, don't feed them bloodworms because they tend to get bloated, and keep them at 85 degrees. Now, that being said, 90% of the species. There's some like Borelli, and I'm trying to think of a couple others that might like it a little bit cooler, but I struggled for many years at the retail store. I'd get Apistos bred by Dean, I'd import them, I'd get them from wholesalers, and over time, I just go, yeah, they're getting a little bloated. I'm starting to lose some of them. And the key was when Dean was like, you have to run them 85. You have to run them at 85. The minute I did, it was easy mode from then on. And when Dean is adamant about something, I tend to listen because he's not adamant very often. He's usually like I am, most things will work. But he was adamant about that 85. And once we put dedicated heaters in with our Apistos at the store and everything, there was pretty much never a problem again. So that would be my one tip. Tyler Woodhouse, I picked up some trout goodies from the co-op last week. That must mean you flew in. You don't live local, buddy. Almost through quarantine, looking great. Another successful flight with fish from the co-op. Yeah, so those came from my personal 800-gallon that I'm working on. Hopefully in a week or two, we're going to use a forklift and try to move it into this room. And Tyler, I know I haven't gotten back to you yet, but Tyler is writing an article on flying with fish. More proof even right here. I haven't had time to proof it or maybe pass it on to Irene or anything like that, so don't feel like, man, I did work and this guy's just ignoring me. I've been drinking business out of a fire hose the last couple weeks. It is brutal. So, let's see here. Ben Price, welcome to the club. I'm gonna do some more. Well, it's easy to say you're gonna do something. I'm gonna attempt to try and do some more member shorts and stuff like that. There's all these little tips that I basically go, that's a cool thing, I should film that, but it's not quite a video. And if it's not quite a video, YouTube will just punish me, but I can do it as a members only short and just go, check this out. Here's what you need to learn in 40 seconds, but it's not enough to expound on a video. So I'm going to try to work that in some more. Let's see. Oh, we have news products. I don't even have them yet. I have my Easy Potassium, which is new, but our retail store doesn't even have it yet. Hopefully RPP stores will have it in the next week to 2 weeks. If they order today, we'll be shipping it, today on the East Coast, not yet. Tomorrow, we'll ship it tomorrow if they order today. Same for you guys. And where was I going with that? Oh yeah, we have new extreme products. We also have methylene blue. So we have methylene blue, which is good for hatching eggs if you hatch them in a specimen container. Also can be used as a medicine. We also brought in the extreme wrigglers, which is kind of like a Vibrobite type food. We brought in the SoFly Flake. We brought in the Reptile sticks from Extreme, and we brought in, there's one more, Beef Heart Flake. And so all of those I've tested, and one, they needed to get better when I was testing them, and other people kept helping test, and so they did get better. Two, we had no more space in the warehouse. So now that we've moved to Kentucky, we have lots of space for now. So we are able to bring on those fringe products of yeah, we would, but it doesn't make sense to right now. Now in Kentucky, we get to flip that switch and go, yeah, we could do that. And so we're working on, you're going to see a lot more product announcements, and it's going to seem like, well, you just carry anything now. A lot of these products have been testing in the queue from other brands and stuff. It's like, we literally just don't have room. Like, it's a great product. We don't have room to carry it. So we were real packed in there. So now we can. And so you're going to see, each week, like, hey, there's more stuff, which hopefully that'll be good for you guys, in that you won't have to go other places. We also kind of, I guess we haven't announced this officially, maybe officially, but we're doing some testing, and the testing so far is looking very good. So we're hopeful. But free shipping is now down at $49.99, down from $79.99, because Kentucky is more centralized to more of our customers. That brings our shipping basis down a bit, and we're able to pass that along. I always try to split it with you guys 50-50. It's my goal. Doesn't always work out that way, but if we can get a savings, I try to go, hey, let's save the company 50% and let's save our customers 50%. And so, yeah, that makes it a little bit easier for you guys to order. We also lowered the price of the plants. That was another thing. By moving to Kentucky, we no longer have to ship from like Florida to Washington for the plants. We ship from Florida to Kentucky, and that saves money. We also don't have to pick them up from the airport. We were paying about $300 per airport pickup, between employee time and gas and insurance for a van or a delivery service. And so that allowed us to bring most of our plants down to $7.99, and then you get a 10% discount when you're buying 4 or more. P.S. Most of that stuff starts stacking too. Like, that 10% discount and your membership discount don't stack. But if you left a review because you bought products from us before, that typically stacks. So, we try to reward you for doing things for us. If you help us and write reviews, which also helps customers, you can usually get a 5% discount through your email, and then you can use that on your next order, which if you're already a member, you're already saving 5% on every order anyway. But I tested it because a member asked yesterday, and it does stack. So you could technically save up to 10% if you had left a review from a previous order. You have to have ordered from us, and then you also are a member. So I haven't seen Robert in any videos in a while. He's still with our company? No, he's not. He left on good terms and everything. I try not to talk about people's personal lives because I don't know how much they want out there. So it's up to them to say that. But no, he didn't, not working with us anymore, which is a bummer. But not for any nefarious reasons or anything either. It made sense. He moved. I won't say where or anything, but it would be like a 45-hour drive to work each day if he still worked for us. So, can you pick up at the Kentucky warehouse? No, we don't have that ability. We flirt with it every once in a while, but it's a whole nother cog that we gotta, when would it be? Who are we staffing? Does it make sense? And at the moment, no. We tried with RPP stores, and even that was kind of a nightmare, because what we would get into is people would like, I'll be there at noon. It's like, oh, I got held up. It's 2:30. Like, well, that we prioritized your order. We got it ready. This happened. And now we're waiting around, and people, work through the lunch or rearrange their lunch. And so for now, it's, you order it, we ship it, maybe someday down the road, but it's another layer of complexity in warehouse management software and staffing and all of that. Like, what days of the week, what times would you allow, all that kind of stuff. And the reality is it becomes very expensive to pull that off in a good way, especially if you have a lot of people picking up, and then you're like, oh, we're unloading a cargo container full of product, and this is happening all at the same time. Nathan says, I placed a 2K order and definitely used the 5% off to get a 10% off. Yeah. That we might not always reward for reviews. What we're always doing, by the way, we're always taking lots of data and looking at it and going, does this still make sense? And when programs end, they stop making sense. When programs come back, by the way, like, oh, the discounts on plants came back. Yeah, we moved the warehouse, right? Shipping came down. We moved the warehouse. So we're not only looking at data to make cuts and go, oh, yeah, how can we get more money out of you guys? We're also looking at it from the other side of how can we save you guys money at the exact same time? And we just look at the data and we go, does that make sense? That makes sense. Let's do that. All right, let's do that. 3 weeks cycling, 75 gallons. We use all-in-one fertilizer, root tabs, but our plants aren't thriving like they should. Some are melting. We've tested the water. It's got 0 ammonia, 0.25 nitrite, and 0 nitrate. What should I do? Dose more fertilizer. The fact that you're registering 0 nitrate is a sign your plants are starving. Now, are you dosing Easy Green? Or is it a competitor? Some competitors, all-in-one fertilizers, are real weak. And there's more and more coming out every week. I saw 3 more fertilizers launched like in the last 2 weeks. But if you're using ours, you want to keep dosing that Easy Green until you get up to like 20 parts per million nitrates. And that's probably going to be like 6 doses worth to get there. If you're just putting 1 dose in your testing, it's really hard to pick up just 3 parts per million nitrates. So you might have 3 parts per million, but it would show you 0 most likely. So I would say, 1, plants probably transition if they're new. 2, give them a lot more food, a lot more nitrates. Just set up locker boxes at the Kentucky warehouse for pickups. See, this is what business is. This is what we do in meetings every day. You go, could we allow people to pick up? Well, we'd have to staff people. There could be some insurance problems there with people coming on site. There could be like, what if someone, like in the retail store, we have employees get groped, we have theft, we have, possibilities. And then, you might get like, oh yeah, what if we set up locker boxes outside? That makes sense. Yeah, like Amazon locker box. Yeah, why don't we do that? The reality is when you put it into practice and you don't think through it, you're like, okay, but what products are going to get way too hot? Like, oh yeah, it's Kentucky summer and it's 90 degrees out, and in that locker box, it's 130 degrees, and they didn't pick it up on time. It sat there for 2 days, and we've cooked brine shrimp eggs. We've cooked plants. We've cooked things, right? And then you got the opposite problem of freezing to death in the winter. And so what seems like, it's a no-brainer, let's do that, actually becomes more complicated. Now, it'd be easy if we're just selling like this thing. Like, yeah, just sell this thing. That's fine. It can get hot, can get cold, doesn't matter. But a lot of our products don't like getting extreme hot or extreme cold. Mostly you just got to avoid actually freezing, and you got to avoid getting way, way too hot for too long. But, just like leaving it in a mailbox, if you let your plants sit there for 2 or 3 days in the blazing sun, they're just going to melt. That's just the reality of it. So we don't want to set up a situation outside where that's already happening. When you at least ship it, you go, hey, it's going to be in a truck, it's going to be in a building, it's going to be in these different places. And even if it sits on the tarmac to get shipped somewhere on a plane, that might be a few hours in comparison. So also, how do you do locker boxes on 4-foot lights? You start running into just all these weird scenarios of like, oh yeah, right, okay, yep, yeah. Good to hear the warehouse move is beneficial. It's been awesome to watch you grow over the years. Yeah, I will say it's been incredibly, incredibly stressful and financially taxing, but we're starting to crawl out of that hole. I definitely am looking forward to some smooth sailing going forward. That would be real nice. A lot of people have been working incredibly hard to make this transition happen, and I'm super thankful because I know if it's been this hard for me, it's also been this hard for everybody involved, and it took everybody to make this happen. Like it's been an endeavor. A lot of learning for everybody involved. Thanks for cooking brine shrimp video with Dean. Perfect time for me. My setup is going. I'm excited for my first batch of Aquariumcoop eggs. Good luck once you get it going. We dose once a week. Now, how often do I dose? I think, Melissa, you were talking about that tank. Let me scroll up. Yes, it was you, Melissa. So we've got guides and stuff like this on the website, but the way you really want to run Easy Green or fertilizers is you want to keep it somewhere between 20 and 40 parts per million of nitrates. And in established tanks where there's lots of fish poop in the gravel and you're feeding the fish and all that, that'll contribute to it. But in a brand new tank like you have, it started at 0. And so if you dose once, right? I dose Easy Green once a week, you'll have about 3 parts per million nitrates in your aquarium. Now your plants are going to eat some of that. Let's say they ate 2 of them. Well, next week you'll dose again, and now you have 4, right? But we said we wanted 20 to 40, so it's going to take a long time to get there. So when I start a new tank, like I said earlier, maybe 6 doses. So I might literally go 6x the dose. I might dose every day for a week, testing each day, going, well, what am I up to now? What am I up to now? The other thing to realize is once you get to 20 to 40, the job's not over. Now your plants are really growing, they're loving life, they're done melting, new tank syndrome, it's getting seasoned, right? Well, now your plants are starting to go, ooh, I'm getting bigger, ooh, I'm getting bigger, I'm getting bigger, I'm expanding, I'm getting bigger. And you might find yourself going, well, I have to dose Easy Green 2 to 3 times a week now, and I got to plant root tabs every 2 or 3 weeks. And that's all fine and dandy. And then you might come in a month later and you go, my plants hit the roof. I had to trim them down because it was looking bad. Well, now you might have been dosing 3 times a week. You only got to dose 2 times a week. And I realize that goes like, well, this sounds like it's work. It kind of is, but that's where like a quick test strip, you just, once a week you go, hey, where am I at? All right, let's dose a little heavier this week. No, I can dial it back a little bit this week. And that's where that range of 20 to 40, where if you're like, I just want to stay at 20, you're going to do a lot of water changes and a lot of dosing to really try and ride that line, where if you give yourself a range, much better, much easier. Incredibly stressful and financially taxing. The Aquarium Co-op story needs to be a book in the future. Yeah. To make this happen, we literally had to take money out of our retirement account to make this happen. So I literally have stolen from Corey in the future to make this happen. And a big, not all of it, but a big portion of it is employee severance packages, relocation packages. I've tried to do the best I can do as a 41-year-old entrepreneur. And, compared to callous giant corporations where you just show up one day and the doors are locked. Like we've done the best we can do by our employees, and I'm banking on my ability to keep you guys engaged long enough to recoup that money long term. So far it's working, so I'm happy. But it's yeah, right there. Let's see here. Corey's actually 27, was what the co-op did to him. If you look at pictures of like 6 years ago, didn't have any white hair, not nearly as wrinkled. A lot of it is self-imposed stress. Got to conquer the aquatic world. I feel like if we don't do it, who's gonna do it? And so we try really hard. And I've got a great team of people around me who, they're willing to work stupid hard as well. So why is my water lettuce propagating and melting simultaneously? I'm confused. All right. Well, let's imagine you got a water lettuce this big, right? It takes, let's say, 5 drops of Easy Green to stay alive every week. Well, if you make a baby one, that might only take 1 drop. Well, if you're dosing the same amount every week and we needed 100 drops, but you're only dosing 50 drops, the babies can stay healthier better. Right? And in general, nature's stress mechanism is if there's not enough food, make a baby. A baby requires less food than an adult. And so that's where you get Java ferns making little babies all the time. You can get water lettuce doing that. You see stem plants where the top growth is good, but the bottom growth is bad. It's like keep pushing forward at all costs so that when the nutrients come, we're prepared to utilize that. So I think it's just a nutrient issue, especially with water lettuce. They can grab CO2 out of the air. They're this far away from the light. They've got perfect conditions, and those roots that sit in the water, just think of them as like straws, just sucking up all that Easy Green. Yeah. Let's see here. Candy does an amazing job. Wouldn't be as cool of a company without you. 100%. We've got an amazing customer service team. There's so many amazing people, whether it's they've got a great idea, they've got a great work ethic, they've got, whatever it is. There's no way like we're 35 people strong. I can't do it. In fact, I can't even do Candy's job. I can physically go, here's your refund, but I can't do it going, I know they're using this product incorrectly, or I get sidetracked. I'm like, I have to fix this issue. 1 in 1,000 people are having this problem. I got to fix it. Where Candy can service, do the customer service, go, here's your refund, here's your replacement, here's your help, whatever is needed. And then we tag, every time you guys send in a question or anything like that, we tag it. So, it's a problem, a refund, a misship, a question about illness or whatever is going on with their tank, so that we have stats. And then we have meetings on the stats and go, okay, well, we need to write a blog article about that. We need to make a video about this. We need to change our product description here. We need to do this. We need to see if we can package that better with the manufacturer so that we don't have that happen in shipping as often. We need to maybe design a cap instead of the pump head because of the way it ships. And so, as the customer service manager, that, she's got people under her, that funnels to her. She funnels that and reports to us. We use software to also pull in those reports so that we can keep a, 10,000 foot view on all the products. Because sometimes I'm way too into the weeds on a product. Oftentimes I'm like, we got to fix this. And then we look at the data and you're like, 4 people ever have had that problem. And you're like, okay, well, maybe we don't, maybe it's not a 911. Okay, I get it. That happened this week. I don't remember what the product was, but I was like, we got to fix it. I can't get my Java moss to grow. Any tips? I like using basically lots of fish poop and shrimp to keep it, algae-ish free, and lots of thyme. That's my secret weapon of like, lots of thyme. I got so much Java moss over there, but it takes forever to grow. Let's see here. How long have I been live? Okay. I just want to make sure I don't accidentally 4-hour it again and then be in trouble of like, oh my gosh, I didn't go to work today. I mean, I've been at work, but I've got other stuff I got to do. Your live streams and videos are a phenomenal resource for newbies like me. I'll be around for the long haul, hoping you can eventually find retailers in Canada, or more retailers. Yes. The problem with Canada is just tax issues and all of that. It's long term, we hope to be worldwide. Short term, one foot in front of the other. Like, let's just keep trucking forward slowly but surely. To launch in another country the way we did, like in Kentucky, it's like $1 million. So it's one of those, like, you save up for a very long time. We've been working on this for years. And even then, it's like, this stuff costs money. And, so, and the double inventory, because seemingly out of nowhere for you guys, like, you're in Kentucky, and that was by design. We didn't want to be like, we're shutting down for 2 weeks. You can order from us in 2 weeks. We want it so that just like, yep, now they're just coming out of Kentucky for you. You didn't even know. No service disruption. Am I moving as well? Nope, I'm staying here. I am staying in Washington. We still have the retail store. I've got lots of family around. And if truth being told, putting distance between me and the warehouse is a better work-life balance for me. I'm less likely to get sucked into something at the warehouse. I don't have cargo containers, nearly as many showing up at my doorstep on the wrong day or the wrong time. You might schedule like, the whole crew will be here at noon. That's when the truck's going to be here. And then they're there at 4:00 in the morning. You're like, what are you doing? Oh, I just thought I'd get here early. And it's like, but the clock starts now and my team's not going to be here for 8 hours. So stressful. Can be very stressful on some of those. So by distancing that, I fly in and I'll, like I know there'll be a trip probably this summer I want to work on the filtration systems for the plant systems a little bit. And some other stuff, like Zenzo's there right now, actually flew in this week. So, but someone needs to be at the retail store. My house is here, my family's here, and Randy himself is moving to Kentucky. So, number 2 of the company, Randy, vice president, will be living very close to the warehouse, and having your right hand there makes it so I can be over here. We're not all stacked in one place anymore. Who's the on-site boss at the warehouse? I don't know if it makes sense to share that. I should really sit down with HR and be like, is it just better for me not to say this? Probably better not, unless because this person, I don't know expressly, like, did they list us on their LinkedIn or didn't they? Do they want people to know or don't they? And I don't gain anything by going, it's Jim Bob Smith. And you go, who's that? And I go, yeah, exactly. It's Jim Bob Smith. It doesn't matter. But maybe, one listener is like, hey, I know that person and XYZ. So fresh Diet Coke. I like that. What's the update on your big pond? It's getting on my nerves. That's clever. Nice job. The update is we put another big koi donated from a customer, friend of mine, in the pond. The second extension cord, I had to string 2 together, stopped working. I need to get out there and replace the one I ordered, and I want to upsize the air pump. And I desperately want, maybe this summer will be the summer, where we dig a trench and get power so I don't have to run a stupid extension cord like that. And I want to get an auto feeder, one of those big fancy koi ones that like spit it out into the water. We did have geese, and we raised a little geeseling, not like us, like they did in our pond. And we have, when I walked out here today, a lot of little ducks and baby ducks out there. So, pond still ponding, but haven't made any videos on it. The lawn is a mile long, even though we mowed it like 8 days ago. Did that classic, real sunny, rain for 6 days with a mix of sun to like, I'm pretty sure that grew 2 inches every day. Dang it. I don't know if every state gets that, but Washington gets that zone where you can get grass that's growing at a stupid fast rate. Like the amount of water we can throw down and then sunny back to back to back to back to back. You can just watch it. How come my Pogo Stellatus octopus plant is so long and just... We trailed off. We don't know what... well, it's a stem plant, so it will grow as tall as you let it. It can be 50 feet tall. You need to cut it and plant it. It'll grow new roots if you want to keep it down. The other thing you can do is, if you have stem plants, you can help train them by, let's say your tank's this tall and your stem plants are this tall. If you keep cutting them as they get taller right here, every time you make a cut on a stem plant, it usually turns into 2. So it will grow out and just get bushier and bushier and bushier and bushier. So I'd be real tempted to be doing that if you don't like the tall part of it. Did I find my 2x4 and cinder block racks would bow a little in the middle? I have a top shelf with no center support with a 20 long and a 10 gallon on the top. And they have 4 2x4s under them, but it sags. Well, yes, in that scenario, I would expect that. Your ultimate goal, or my ultimate goal, is when you're building cinder block stands, ideally, in a perfect world, the ends of your aquarium would be right next to cinder blocks or right above where cinder blocks are. When you put 2 tanks, which I used to, the center, now you've got 2 pressure points right there. You will get a little bit of bowing typically, unless you're using some real stout wood. But hasn't been that much of a problem for me in those scenarios because slight deflection. Now, if you try to do an 8-foot span and you're like, oh, well, I put 6 tanks on it, like it's going to get real low in the middle. So best practice is to have, cinder blocks at the ends of the tanks and trying to kind of center it up on that is the best. Like even my my stands right here with the 40 breeders, they have that problem. There's tanks that only sit in the middle, and you get like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch deflection in the middle of that, but seems to be okay. I must be dreaming or my brain is kind of like working faster and on a different plane than I am today. I must be watching a lot of fish videos. I had a dream about visiting Aquariumcoop store, and it was a ball. Someday, I'll make it in person. Someday, we might actually get to open that expansion. So I'll go through one aspect of this. For plumbing, there is already sinks there. We swapped out the sinks with new utility sinks. And That's triggering plumbing permits. Also, we have drains, but the drains run to sumps, and the drains pump to this utility sink. So technically, I don't even think we are supposed to have to pull any permits on that. But I digress. Because in our building plan it says those 2 sinks are new, but I don't think the permitting people understand we replaced existing sinks. They want a mechanical or a plumbing permit pulled with CAD drawings and everything. I reached out to a company to get them to do that. Well, that's not true. We had a company come out and they said, cool, yeah, we can do that. We are 7 to 8 months out. In 8 months, we can do the CAD drawings that the city wants. And I'm like, that's 8 months. They go, well, I know this other company, and I think they've got a lower timeline. They've got a timeline of 3 to 4 weeks they can start. Well, I messaged them, and they want $3,500. They want me to draw it up myself, provide them CAD files from the architects, and then they won't even visit it on site. And for $3,500, they'll crank out a plan. And so at this point, I'm back to the contract. I'm like, just take pictures and take our architect plans and go down and talk to the plumbing permit people. Because I did this myself 11 years ago. And once you kind of show them, like, I took this sink out, I put the new sink in. That's what I did. And I did that over here also. And then all this crazy plumbing stuff going in the tanks goes to a sump pump that we pump into that sink. And once they kind of see the picture and they work through it, they go, oh, well, if you just draw it up this way, yeah, we'd approve that. So I'm hoping that'll be the same system and not be this $4,000+ thing to get a piece of paper that draws that we replaced 2 sinks. So, yeah, Triple Fork, fly me over. I draw them for free. Yeah. So the extra part of that, you have to be licensed in the city of Edmonds, where our store is, for them to accept your plans. You could be the world's best plumbing guy that with all the CAD knowledge in the world, but if you're not licensed in that city, they won't accept it. It's just another layer of like bureaucracy. So that's why it's like my options are very slim of companies to choose from with some of this stuff, and why it's taking forever. It's not just like find a architect company. I have to have one licensed in Edmonds. Like we also had to do seismic architect. Lots of thousands of dollars spent to basically look at our aquarium stands and other stuff and just go, yeah, you did a great job. You need, like, out of all of that, it was like, I'd like to see one more toenailed nail in each of these cross members. And I would like to see on each stand, I would like to see one more anchor point into the concrete, because we are at 22 inches from the end of the board, and the code states the last anchor should be within 18 inches of the end of the board. So it's like, all right, glad we spent thousands and thousands of dollars on that, but we will do it, So it's just that it's a tedious, like, if we had the green light, the store would be open in like 3 days. Like like from a store operating standpoint, we're ready to go. From a getting all the little check boxes done, like, it's been real grueling. Yeah, the permitting stories, they're brutal. They're brutal. One of the things that we're working through, making one of our 3 bathrooms as ADA compliant as possible, which I'm all for. However, they're having us do the least accessible ADA bathroom because it is 2 inches larger than the other one that is much more accessible, that's currently in the store. And we have to spend the law states we can have to spend upwards of $40,000 to retrofit this bathroom. Now, I'm all for it. I'm not against it in any way. I just really wish it could be the one that's like makes more sense. Like, it's easier to get to. It's in the store right now. Like, let's do that. Yeah. There's other things too that drive me up the wall. Like, we have to put in a $25,000 HVAC system because a law was passed in 2018 that requires, if there's people inside a retail store, you have to have a unit that will exchange air between the inside and the outside. That's just the law. So our main store does not have this. We built it before 2018. It's been fine. Gets a little hot on a Saturday because it's hot. But to code and the way it's stated, we have to, like, we looked at traffic, and the most we ever have in the store is like 22 people, and that's like on the busiest Saturday of the year. But based on code, the two expansions, each side could have, we have to put in an air system for 65 people, and that gets into these big HVAC systems. So, yeah, it's going to be. I guess what I'm painting is, we're financially stretched with Kentucky. We're financially stretched and frustrated and stressed out with retail at the same time. And as we get through all of these projects, everything will flow smoother. Of like, all right, yeah, no meetings with contractors and crazy bids today. Like, we just work on aquariums. Love it. Used to own a construction company in Washington. Welcome to 7th level of hell with permitting. Yeah, that's it's a doozy. We know it's pinholes in our Anubias and some twisting. Will that change when we dose more like you told me? Yes, Melissa. So what you're seeing is deficiency. So pinholes, for instance, would be potassium. Now, it sounds like your aquarium is just out of nutrients. And so dosing more easy green will bring more potassium. And this is not an instance where I would tell you, so this is where I don't want people to get confused. That's why I'm leery about this. If you just looked it up on our deficiency chart, you'd say, oh, look, I have pinholes. It says I need more potassium. And you could buy easy potassium and dose that. However, we also know you have like no nitrates. You probably have low phosphates and all that. So the answer for you is actually more easy green right now. So also the twisting of the leaves, I think that might be magnesium. I have to look it up. I don't want to guide you down the wrong path, but look at a deficiency chart. And it also depends on how it's twisting. Is it an existing leaf? Is it a new budding leaf? There's some things to it. Is there a little veining going on or not? But in general, in your specific scenario, and most people, I would say, more easy green is the answer. And then at a lesser percentage of people, like, nope, you actually do have a lot of the building blocks. You're only missing potassium. Go ahead and dose that. Let's see here. Oh, to finish up the HVAC system, the guy that came out with the quote and everything, he's like, by the way, this is going to move so much air, you're probably going to just turn this off the minute you get like check marked. He's like, the amount of air will be moving, it'll be freezing in here. He's like, you have to keep it warm, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you won't be able to run this during the winter. I'm like, oh, awesome. So I'm putting in a thing that will make no sense. He's like, yep, but it'll satisfy the requirement. I'm like, oh, good. Oh, good. It will probably be nice in the summer. You know, it will. And that's the thing. I'm not upset that we have to do something. I'm upset at the magnitude we have to do it. Like, that's the part where I'm like, these are the spaces are joined. I know how many people could be here. Because here's the thing, right? If 45 people can fit in the expansion, and we know the max we've ever had is like 22 in the current store, we're now about to get 3 times as big. We're not magically going to be like, yeah, we got 66 people on a Saturday. I hope. If we get 66 people every Saturday, I will put 2 HVAC systems in, because we'll be making a lot of money. But that's not how it works. Just because you make the store bigger doesn't triple the amount of people that visit. If we're lucky, we're going to see like 5 to 10%. That'd be great. That'd be a home run. So and so my thing was, we were on we're on the cusp. And the guy literally is like, if you can find a way where the engineers can redesign what space for the public and stuff, you can get this smaller handlers that won't cost as much as this Gigantotron unit. Because it's one of those stupid scenarios where you're like, oh yeah, this one here, this air handler handles 1 to 30 people. And it would cost you $15,000 to put in. And then it's like, oh, this one here handles 31 to 4 million people? Like, why does it gotta be like that? Why can't, and that one, oh, that one's $45,000? Like, oh, good. So we actually, We actually are going to put 2 smaller systems in above our doors, and then we have to drill through the brick front, suck air in, and then run these 10-inch tubes across the front windows. So it's going to look terrible, and punch out through the wall on that side because the intake and output got to be 10 feet from each other on both sides. So it's just one of those like, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So yeah, it's one of those like, at some point we'll pull the trigger on the $25,000 system. I just want to make sure that we can get plumbing going and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just, yeah. Dan says I came in at a cool time. I'm going to HVAC in January. I hope that's an intended pun. HVAC and cooling. Yeah. Why do you choose to do business in such a draconian and, I can't even say that second word, Byzantine rules and regulations? Well, to be fair, I would say most business owners don't get a choice. When you're 29 or 30-year-old Corey, right, and you don't have a lot of money, you want to build it somewhere close to where you live. And I happen to know the most about where I live. So you could make a case of like, yeah, but couldn't you have moved it and put it in an entirely different state? Like, I know nothing about that state, though. So then you build this retail store and you build up your clientele. If I picked up that store and put it in Montana, maybe they don't care, but I'd have no clientele, right? So my answer to that was, you don't really get to choose. Now in Kentucky, we got to choose, and it's been going fine, right? But usually when you start a business, you don't really get a choice. It's I'm a kid, basically a kid with a dream. Let's try it. And now that here's where we are. Can you not take air from the roof and drill straight down? I've got tenants above me. So I've got tenants above me, we have earth behind me, and we have tenants to the sides of us. The other route that I had them scope up was to run the venting through the retail store, through the employee break room area and back storage. And that was like the same price and kind of was going to make it look even worse. So it's like, all right, we don't have a whole lot of options. Yeah, it's, by the way, I'll also say this. Out of like the 30 tenants in this entire complex, I will be the first one to have an HVAC system. Lucky us. All right. With the levels I told you that our tank is at right now, would you say I'm close to having a tank fully cycled? I would pivot and say I never like talking about cycling because I think it to be absolutely useless. Someone grab that clip and make me look like a weirdo on the internet. Corey says cycling is useless. Oh, don't listen to this guy. And what I mean by that is being cycled doesn't really mean a whole lot. To me, it's like if you could, what's a good example? If you can make one sandwich, doesn't mean you're a culinary expert, right? You physically made a sandwich, now you can cook. That's not a true statement. What I do advocate for, and we have videos on it, and we have articles on it, is strive for a seasoned aquarium, which I think you've been here the whole time, so you heard me mention that a little bit earlier. And that would be where you're growing some algae, you're growing some microfaunas, you've got, seed shrimp, and you've got maybe some scuds, and you've got some little wormies in there, and you've got life happening. You've got bacteria, you've got bacteria feeding on wood, you've got algae, you've got bacteria in your filters, you've got bacteria in the gravel, you've got poop in the gravel, you've got mulm over there. All of those things lead to a system that's very, very stable. When you cycle an aquarium, I could cycle this water bottle. This water bottle right here. You could cycle it with ammonia, and then you go, yep, it's got bacteria in it, but it would not be very good for any animal to live in it. Not just because of the size either, but just because it's so sterile. So I want to see when I'm setting up an aquarium, yeah, that's right, Candy, #STT, season tank time. I want to see live plants growing. I want to see algae growing. I want to see poop. I want to get a snail going. I want to get all the low level stuff happening. It's kind of like a garden. I want to till the garden. I want some weeds to start growing. I want to get the water system going. I want to start seeing some worms. I want to start seeing some other bugs. Then I'll start thinking about planting some stuff in there. And that's kind of how I feel about the tank. Instead of planting stuff, adding fish. And so the longer, I have this strong belief that the longer your tank goes without major changes, the more stable and resilient it becomes. And for me personally, I don't consider a tank to be well seasoned until it's got its last major changes. And not just water changes. Like this tank right here is going through major changes. It's been set up for a long time. Well, not a long time, but quite a while. Lots of loam in there. You can see lots of snails. There's algae. It's got all the stuff I just said. But I won't consider that tank stable till I put the new fish in, the new scape, the new plants, all that stuff. And it's been 6 months from then even. Then I go, hey, this thing is predictable. When I test the water, it comes out the way I think it should be. I know how often to change water. I know how often to put fertilizer in there. I know what foods. I'm not running into illnesses. I'm not adding new fish and needing to quarantine or use meds or anything. All of those things are steps towards a very healthy running ecosystem. And that's what the season tank time is. Where a cycle is one step. If I was to lay out a timeline of what a season tank looks like, cycling is like right there. Like, yes, you have at least one bacteria that can take ammonia to nitrates, right? But our ecosystem is so much more than that. And what you'll watch happen is people be like, I'm cycled, and they go buy fish and do other things. They're not watching anymore because they treat it like they passed a test. I passed the test. I am now an expert. When in reality, we know in most things of life, just because you pass a test, you can go to school for a subject, and then you need how many years of experience, of on-the-job experience to truly be good at that thing. And that's what your aquarium is. Like, yep, you passed the test, but how many years of experience does this actual aquarium have of sustaining itself? Let's see. If a neocardinia shrimp can land in a new tank, hang out, and start eating within 3 inches of where it landed, is that tank seasoned? I mean, that's a good sign. I see what you're saying. For people that wouldn't know, is they typically want to feed on bacteria and little microfauna they would find, and they're not, if they didn't have to go very far to find it, that would be a sign that, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's biologically active. So I would take that as like a sign of like, yes, but you can also, like, I learned this a long time ago when I was trying to become a billionaire breeding shrimp, right? When they were newer to the hobby, and I was like, cool, I'll just get all the varieties. I'm going to be rich. And we would buy these sacks of like 200 shrimp. You drop them into a 55, and like a week later, you'd start getting like, well, 2 died today, 4 died today, 4 died the next day. And it was because they literally had wiped it clean. They've eaten all of the microfauna that you could basically get. And we weren't, back then it wasn't as well known of like, yeah, put in like 40 catopolys, do this, do that, do this, do that. It was, we were kind of going, we didn't realize that seasoned tanks were carrying us a lot in the shrimp world, basically. And that's why, one of the reasons why ADA soils and fluval stratum and that kind of stuff worked so well at the beginning for shrimp, because the minute you put it in water, it started rotting. And when it started rotting, even though it released a lot of ammonia, you'd have to wait for that. The bacteria that would feast on that rotting material was great for the shrimp. And so that's kind of why they started going hand in hand with each other. The true test of your tank, of your seasoned tank, is, has society noticeably changed since it was set up? You do, I shouldn't say you. Sometimes I get to rent at tanks like that where like, whoa, you've had this running from the 70s? And they'll have like old pieces of equipment still just running. But those tanks do run differently than a tank that's been running for 2 years or 2 months. And it's also, their routines are typically really dialed in. As in they just like, yeah, here's my water change. This is the food. I've been feeding this food for 14 years straight. Like, wow, okay, yeah, you're real dialed in here. Melissa says, yes, we have snails, those tiny white jumping bugs, and algae. I'm not even sure when I should put in fish. So to me, Melissa, what I would recommend, post a picture of your overall aquarium in the Facebook group and just ask like, hey, does this look like it's looking ready to go? People are going to ask you if your parameters are ready to go, and you've got a little bit to go still on that. But maybe I'll see and I'll be able to chime in. But the fact that you have algae and you've got some snails, you said you had, I think, a little bit of nitrite in there, but you basically got the building blocks of like, yeah, you're real close to being able to put some fish in, I think. And it's not even just fish. It could be more snails or something like that. Any of those could be. But getting some more life going in there, I think I think you're real close. And what you might find is the nitrite you're getting is from rotting leaves because you just don't have enough easy green, or because they were immerse grown and they're still converting, or something else completely. But I think you're right at the cusp of starting to add your first chosen inhabitants, basically. I was breeding Neos in a tank with 30 plus degrees of GH and KH, and eventually killed them by diluting with RO to lower the recommended hardness. Yeah, that happens a lot. There are people that I love in this hobby as people, but their recommendations, I always just wonder, I'm like, I realize this is working for you, but are you really checking in? Is it working worldwide? Like people, especially when they're like, you need to use TDS to keep your shrimp. That's one of my biggest pet peeves of like, if I dump potassium in there, it'll add TDS. If I dump dechlorinator in there, it'll add TDS. If I add shrimp minerals in there, it'll add TDS. If I add copper in there, it'll add TDS. If I add salt, I could literally just add marine salt, adding TDS. I could add aquarium salt, adding TDS. And so when people are like, yeah, you need this much TDS to have this shrimp thrive, I just go, you're not following up with saying it needs to be from what shrimp want. And that would be maybe some of the minerals, right? And so you'll hear me often say, and I'm not perfect, no one's perfect, but often I will say, you need 20 to 40 parts per million nitrates for your plants to grow when it's derived from easy green. Because just fish poop on its own doesn't lead to a super healthy aquarium most times. It's hard to get balance from the food you're feeding. Does it have enough phosphates and potassium in it? You probably got the nitrates, but does it have the iron you want in it and all of that kind of stuff? Unlikely. And so if you said, Neo shrimp do best at 250 TDS derived from, and then you were to name a shrimp salt that had the minerals in it, I could get way more behind that. But otherwise you get these, just like what was it, Dan? Who was breeding the shrimp? Scroll up my screen. But like that person, they go, well, this is said to be perfect. I'm going to change what I was doing. I was having success. I'm going to change it. And then they don't get success. So I find that it's misleading, not intentionally though. Let's see. How much fish should I be adding each time, and how long should I wait in between? I don't want to overload the bioload. Yeah, you're getting the crash course, Melissa. Technically, fish are irrelevant. Like that. Take that clip. Corey is even more insane. He just said it doesn't matter how many fish you have. Well, it doesn't, and I'll tell you why. So whether you add 5 neon tetras or 5 whatever today or 15 today actually has no meaningful difference on your aquarium. What does have the meaningful difference is the amount of food you put in. So if you have 1 tetra, I don't have any pellets here, do I? No. But if you have 1 tetra and you put in 1 pellet, well, you make 1 pellet worth of waste. And you might go, well, that pellet was this big. That was way too much food. Like, yep, it's 1 pellet of waste. Well, if you have 5 tetras and you put in that same pellet, guess what? It's the same amount of waste to the aquarium, right? Think of it like you bought a pizza. And if you buy a pizza and you eat 1 piece and then you throw away the rest of the pizza, how much pizza was consumed? A whole pizza. You ate 1 piece and you threw the rest away, got consumed, paid the money for it. Now, it's you and 5 friends. You bought 1 pizza. You all ate the pizza. There's none left. How much pizza was bought? One, right? And so what if you had 30 friends over and you bought one pizza and you were at like a company party / at school and they cut each slice into like 3 slices and you all got a sliver? How many pizzas did we get? One, right? So the amount of actual fish for people doesn't really matter. It's the amount of food. If you can control, and I recommend this is a good habit to get into, how much food is going into your aquarium, that is the key. That's how we do it at retail stores. How can you have 300 neon tetras in that 20-gallon tank today, but then in a week you might only have 9, and then the day after you have 300 again? Well, because every day they get the same amount of food. Whether there's 3 fish, 300 fish, doesn't really matter. Just feed the tank. So you're better off feeding the tank than you are feeding the fish. Now, you did bring up another question. How often can I add fish? Well, again, if you were, if you were feeding 1 pellet a day, let's say 1 big chunky pellet, 1 a day, and you only had 6 fish, and they were having a hard time finishing it, well, you could add 6 more tomorrow. As long as you only put in 1 pellet, it doesn't change the bioload. Now, the flip side to this is, well, Corey, the more animals I have, the more they're going to eat, or the more that food needs to be shared out. And eventually they might not get enough food. And I would say, yeah, that is a problem. So what my recommendation is always this. Start with some fish. Start feeding them a small amount. And when your tank is new, I say feed them the day after you get them. So here you go, little guys. Boom. Then don't feed them for like 3 days. Then give them a little sprinkle. Then you go, all right, there we go. Week 2. Instead of feeding twice that week, feed 3 times that week. Week 3, feed 4 times that week instead of 3. Week 5, feed another time during that week. Eventually, you're feeding 7 days a week. Now, at any point, you can add fish. You could, in week 2, you can go, hey, I'm adding fish. Just don't add more food, right? That's the key. If you go, hey, I want to add more, I better add more food, then you need to wait till you're feeding at least 7 days a week, right? Now, there are some exceptions. This is why aquariums are so hard. There's an exception to everything. And that is things that eat algae. You can put in a pleco, and it can eat a ton of algae, and you don't get to control that. Same with snails, same with decaying plants, and a snail might eat the decaying plant. But when it comes to like a tetra, you're basically feeding, you choose the amount, and the amount of tetras you have is kind of irrelevant. Now, in extremes, that makes no sense. Oh, well, I put 7,000 tetras in my 9-gallon tank. Shocking, didn't work. But is it 3? Is it 6? Is it 9? Doesn't matter if it's a tetra. It doesn't matter. Just pick the number. You want 9 of them? Get 9. Just make sure that when you're feeding them, your tank is ready for that. Now, me personally, I would tell you, your tank could be eating whatever it is you're going to feed before you put fish in there, right? So if you had that 1 pellet, you could put a pellet in there and watch the snails eat it, or whatever's going to watch it break down. It might fungus and break down. Your tank will get used to digesting 1 pellet. And then you can put fish in there, and guess what? They will eat that pellet, but it's still 1 pellet of food, and your tank digests it, no problem. And that's one of the main problems I have with ammonia cycling. How much ammonia is 1 pellet a day? How much is 5 pellets a day? How much is 3 pellets twice a week in ammonia world? We don't know. So you take this thing of like, yep, I dosed some ammonia, I passed the test, now I'm going to add some amount of fish, but I have no correlation to how much fish to how much ammonia I can process, and I don't know how much food to how much ammonia exists. Where if you had a seasoned tank and you go, every day I put in 1 pellet, and I have a few snails and a shrimp that eat that. And then you add fish, and you still just put 1 pellet in. Guess what? Tank just handles it. And then eventually you go, I want to get more fish. I'm going to try to feed 1.5 pellets a day. Oh, the tank's doing just fine. Now I went and bought some fish, and I keep just feeding 1.5 pellets a day. And then a month later I go, you know what? I want more fish. I want to start feeding 2 pellets. Tank does fine with that? Perfect. Let's go get some more fish. But instead, we as hobbyists, we typically buy the fish, then try to get the tank to catch up. In reality, we can get the tank ready. If I was going to put 6 big koi in there, I'd really be power feeding those snails so that they would just be really supercharging the bacteria in there. Let's see. Any tips for someone trying to open an online fish store? Yep, go run somebody else's. That'll always be my tip. I will say this. I don't think I could be successful, even right now with all of my resources, running an online fish store. So, you might be able to do it. Yes, you might, but the odds are going to be against you, in my opinion. So my tip would be, if I was serious about running an online fish store, I would try to get a job at Dan's Fish, Aquahuna, what is it? Oh, Mike Jordy's place down in Florida. Anywhere that's already shipping a lot of fish online, get a job there, really work your way up, learn the marketing side, learn the importing side, the medicine side, the packaging side, the negotiating with UPS and USPS side, all of these things. Because if you can't do those, you will just be crushed by the players that are already in that system. You can always do the route of, I'll just sell all the rare fish that other people don't. And then, in my opinion, you'll watch what happened to redfish, bluefish. Never met the guy in person, seemed like a super nice guy, great intentions, but he sent out a letter that he was like closing down this month. He made it like 2 years. And maybe, no, I think it's more like 4. I don't know the exact timeline, but what usually happens is it's fun in the beginning, and then you realize this is an incredible amount of work for maybe $40,000 to $60,000 take home, and you realize like, wait, I could go work 9 to 5 over for them, and they'll give me that kind of money. I don't have to work 7 days a week and have crazy financial risk, and I could also, you have health insurance too? What? So I would make sure that you really understand that game before you can do it. That's a very hard game that even I'm not confident in. And I don't want to say like, oh, I know it all. I'm just saying, with my resources, my connections, my understanding, we already ship millions of dollars worth of, stuff through shipping carriers. And even I'm going, I don't want any part of that. That is a rough game. Because you've got the summers to deal with, you've got the winters to deal with, you've got importing to deal with, you've got so many moving pieces to that. It's tough. Yes, Chevy Fish got it. Imperial Tropicals with Mike Doherty is who I was trying to think of. I kept wanting to say wholesalers' names like 5D or Miami Tropicals, who's in Florida as well, but that's a fish breeder. I couldn't remember. Yeah, Joel G says, I could be working at McDonald's for more. That, I don't think enough people realize that when they're trying to make a career, not just money, make a career out of fish breeding or selling or doing what I do. Like, I am very lucky in that YouTube worked out and I was able to make some amazing hires and all of that. Without all of these pieces of luck, in addition to hard work, it wouldn't have worked out. And most often, the odds told me I should be working for some other company, is the way the odds should have played out, would have played out normally. I just happened to, is it right time? Is it right skill set? Well, all of this, luck, happened to, stumble upon great employees, those kind of things. You can obviously hedge your bets on some of that, and I've been learning for over 10 years, and every day is that was another lesson I needed to learn. Okay, yep, add that to learn that one the hard way. How long do you think brine shrimp will be on sale? I'm holding out until the Kandanga Buse comes back in stock. So my estimate is this: whether we sell down to the threshold. Let me take a look, and I'll give you my best guess. I'll give you my honest best guess here, because it's an overstock sale. So brine shrimp, I know the number we want to get down to, so that our overstock comes back into okay, we're in a good spot. Let's see here. It's loading apparently. Okay, here we go. I think we will turn it off. My guess, unless a couple of stores come in and order heavy this week, my guess is we'll be turning it off like Sunday night. Unless, if people order big, after a few hundred units from the stores and stuff, plus what you guys are going to order, it could shut off early. But basically, I can't see it going longer than like Sunday night for sure. Could be sooner. What's today? Today's Wednesday. In the next couple of days, we'll get our next tissue culture shipment. It may or may not come in. And when I say may or may not come in, like we ordered it for sure. Whether they have enough to send us or not, I don't know that answer off the top of my head because I haven't looked at it. I think I just lost my chat. Getting it back. Nope, wrong window. Is this one? Yeah, got it. Did you guys shut down the West Coast facility? I'm so sad. I used to get my stuff from you guys next day, or is it just a Kentucky facility now? Just Kentucky. Good news is free shipping threshold went down. Plants got cheaper. All that kind of stuff. But yeah, it will take a bit longer to get to you in Washington, myself included. I posted some maps and graphics and stuff, and the reality is just majority of the people live East Coast, not on the West Coast. Even though we're dense on the fringe of the West Coast, there's a lot of middle in between. Any plans to get my products to the UK? No actual plan. I want to. Don't have a plan in place. So, yes, maybe. The reason I don't have saltwater tanks? Mostly because I don't enjoy the feel of saltwater on my skin. And in my opinion, I have the choice of having like 2 saltwater tanks or 30 freshwater tanks. And I still really enjoy a lot of the freshwater animals that I play with. Saltwater's cool too. There's still some breeding products I want to do, but I'm not in a hurry to do saltwater. And the last few times I've dabbled in saltwater, it's like super fun researching what skimmer I'm going to use. I implemented mangroves into the system. All the setup was super fun. And then the actual, now I have a saltwater tank. I was like, it's just so boring to me. There's my clownfish. There's my blenny. Oh, there's, my starfish there. There's the thing. But I can go, there's my things over here and enjoy them too. So, yeah, I've never been big into I'm all about the corals. It's mostly been about breeding the fish. It's mostly been about copepods and brine shrimp and bioactive sumps and stuff is more entertaining than the actual fish. There's lots of color, but if I want color, I'll go African cichlids and clown loaches and guppies and all of that too. So I don't know. Mostly I think it's just maybe what you like. I think my hands and skin always feel nice after servicing a saltwater tank. I hated it. I ran a service business, and I definitely spent a lot of time making sure I got all of it off with fresh water at a sink. Otherwise, it just felt like salt had dried onto my skin. Same thing. I get out of the ocean and go take a shower. Straight to the shower. I really need just to save up so I can order everything I want. Hatchery eggs, salt, sponge filters, easy green, root tabs, and stickers. That's right. For 300 plus a gallon aquariums, do I prefer acrylic or glass? I myself much prefer acrylic. I think they have stronger welds and bonds in the corners. I've had a 340 gallon glass tank blow out. I've never had a failure on an acrylic tank yet. Knock on wood. Not yet. Also, how do you recommend oxygenating such a tank? I would prefer not to have to use tons of sponge filters and air stones if possible. My guess is 1 or 2 air stones would do it. I used 1 air stone this big in my 800 gallon aquarium. So people tend to overdo stuff. Because they don't measure. That one of the biggest problems we have in the hobby, in life. We spend the money going more is better instead of going what is right. And so what I mean by that is a dual outlet air pump and 2 air stones is like 10, 15 bucks more, right? But a kit to test dissolved oxygen's $25. So you never buy the kit. You buy the extra air stone. Well, then you set up your next aquarium, right? And you go, well, I'm going to put 2 air stones in it again because I'm not sure. Well, now you've spent 30 bucks. The extra air stone, the upgraded size of an air pump, and you may still have way too much again. Where if you'd bought the test kit at the beginning, right, you'd know, oh, one was fine, and I'll save the money on the next one and the next one, and you have a way to test. But in general, we just go, well, people advise this, so I'm just going to do that. And I've put out videos like this. In general, people always say more's better. More can't hurt you. It can always hurt can always hurt your funds. And sometimes, yes, more could hurt. Technically, not likely, but I think it leads us into a false sense of security. I think it leads us into not understanding and testing, just going, I just do this just because. And I was that way for a long time until I bought dissolved oxygen meters. And then I was like, whoa, mind blown. I know how important this is now. Does UPS require signatures from Aquariumcoop by default, or is this just your building? I would say it's probably your building. We go out of our way to make sure we don't have any signature confirmation on anything we ship because we know it's a pain for people. So now it doesn't mean every once in a while an employee couldn't tick the wrong box and it could add it, or something could happen in UPS's system. But by and large, we're shipping hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of packages a day. We do not ask for signature required because it's a pain. Most people are at work. Let's see. How do I fight off Colmenares? I wiped out my tank once. I'm a noob, so it's disappointing that I'm doing it all wrong. One, I would take a look at our videos and articles. I'll give you the quick lowdown, but you want to reinforce that with some more well-explained knowledge. I personally fight Colmenares using a combo of Hikari Ikex and Mardel Maricin. One is an antibiotic. The other one is an antifungal property. And Colmenares typically is some fungus, and then it leaves behind a bacterial infection. So I give it the 1-2 punch. For me, I notice a lot of times I just have to do 1 dose of each and let that sit for a week, and it typically will get it. If it's a bad infection, I'll keep redosing and doing everything as needed. But if you catch it early, 1 dose can get it a lot of the time. By the way, I'll also say whenever I recommend any medicine or anything, this is assuming that you have identified the disease correctly. A lot of times, especially if you're new, you don't do that. And especially like even me, I could be like, yeah, it looks like Colmenares. But if I'm like, hey, I'm using a thing that works on Colmenares, normally it's not. Now I need to start going, have I misdiagnosed this? What's going on here? Let's see. I was a little late. Have I talked about the new easy potassium and its uses? Yeah, if you watch the replay, Steven, you will kind of get that spiel. Also all the other little changes and stuff. I ordered a 20-gallon from Walmart for 43 bucks. They shipped in a regular Walmart box, without any protection. Nothing happened to the tank. Wow. That being said, one of my shipment tanks. I'm more likely to ship tanks than I am ship fish, but I'm not doing that either. I've watched working in a retail store, right? You'll get people that walk in, you're like, cool, this setup is 200 bucks. It's got all the bells and the whistles and all that. And they're like, nah, ain't doing that. And then they'll be like, I hopped on Amazon, I ordered all the stuff. Now can you help me put together? But that story always comes with like, yeah, I took 4 aquariums. 3 of them arrived broken. And you're like, yeah, you shipped them. Duh. That's what happens. So they're not, I can't figure out how they're making money. And then 2, I just always, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering like, what's your time worth? Because you had to then prove that it broke. Then you had to get them to ship you a new one. Then you had to wait for it. It came broke again. Then you had to wait for them to ship you a new one. Then it came broke again. And there were multiple people, and typically it was people ordering 33-gallon longs because they were hard to get a hold of for my store. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of how it is. Shipping glass boxes through the network is going to be difficult. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but if you are going to order, I recommend trying acrylic at least. If we do ship tanks down the road, it will most likely be acrylic. I will try to overbuild them. I will try to overpack them. I will try all the things to make it where 1 in 30 have a breakage issue instead of 1 in 3. Candy, last month I tried to use my 5% discount code on an order, but it was not accepted. The discount code was from the previous month's review. Yeah, might have expired. Those things don't last forever. I don't know specifically on that code. If you send us a message, Candy can look into it for you. But also, I'm not even sure. Let me see if I can tell you that answer. I don't even know, because I think I went out of my way to like not set the expiration early or anything. So if that's the case, then it's a lot of times, and I'm not calling anybody out, a lot of times it can be like a little bit of a user error in that, like, oh, it didn't copy. Like if it copies an extra space, it'll give you an error because like it doesn't have the space. Let's see. Do I have an expiration? Yeah, it should be active. So my guess for you is there's an extra space or something, or the thing that happens the most, people don't put the reviews 5% dash and then the string of letters. They just put the string of letters. So that might be something we actually optimize in that, so that, because there's a decent amount of people that try to put the string of letters and not the reviews 5% dash. Because we like the data. We like to see how many people are utilizing this. Is it costing us to because there's a series of events where you order the right amount of products and live far enough away and do the right things where we actually lost money doing this. That's not a good feeling. So we try to avoid that, obviously. But if it's like 1 in 1,000, it's fine. If it's 1 in 10, we're going to go to business with that. I placed an order today. Excited to see the new products. Trying some of the extreme wigglers. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why is it they can ship tons of tanks from China to America, but American companies can't ship a single tank inside the country? I don't know. Is that true? I'm trying to think of where can I order a tank that ships from China? I can import them, but is that what you're asking? For me, when I bring tanks in, they're coming on a cargo container and they're packed specifically the way we asked them, and so that's why we don't get breakage. If that's what you're asking, that's why. But if you're saying I can hop on a website and order a tank and it will drop ship from China and it's arriving to you not broken, that I'm like, I don't know why you can pull that off. That shouldn't be. It's using the same fulfillment networks. So. Oh, I missed a super chat. My bad. Any advice on getting a tapered look for Vallisneria? Let me think. Saw a tank with carpeted valve trimmed so it was maybe 8 inches in the front and 18 to 24 in the back. Is it possible to trim without dyeing back? Possible, yes. I've done it a bit, but you do get some dye back. If it was me, I would be trying to do Dwarf Sagittaria up front and Vallisneria in the back. That seems just like an easier thing to pull off. I'm really trying to think of. Yeah, plus I don't like the look of cutoff valve nearly as much as not cutoff. So, have I ever been to my partner store in Coachella Valley Aquatics? I live a bit away, but with this new change, I might just drive to get a sponge or air pump if I need. I haven't been there myself, no. Do I use grounding probes in my tank? No. I do think they serve a purpose. Maybe 1 in 1 in 20 tanks might need one, but needing it and being so bad it causes a problem are kind of two different issues, I would say. So yeah, I want to see, what do I want to say? That's a product on my list of like, I'd like to see someone do it better. I feel like the ones that do come out, they're just kind of like, really, they're the best we could do? Like 6-foot cord, no good way to really mount this thing. Like, I feel like we could do better, but what do I know? What do I know? Let's see here. Absolute says, oh, I'm a noob. I'm not even convinced it was Vallisneria. I'll check that out. Yeah. Usually, yeah, I think you probably saw Dwarf Sagittaria that stays smaller in the front, and then it graduated to Vallisneria in the back. Common theme, looks really good together. Yeah, I think that's more likely what you probably saw. You mean, you could have seen the other stuff, but. Is it still feasible to use an Undergravel filter with plants? Yes. In fact, I was this close to putting an Undergravel filter in this tank, but I decided I kind of just want to use this substrate because I know the clown loaches like it. They're going to go in there. And if I'm being 100% truthful, because I literally have all the boxes of substrate right there I was going to use instead, I don't want to wait the season tank time. I was like, right now, I'll have like one stream where it looks terrible. That's fine, right? Transition. But I'm like, if I put brand new gravel in, even if I seed with root tabs, like it's not going to be as good with the crypts and everything I want to plant. Like it's going to take months for me to be like, yeah, all right, it's looking pretty good. Where right now, it is choked full of fish poop. And the plants are just going to go gangbusters after a week or two of like, because what plants do, they basically go, okay, I'm moving in. And then they're like, oh, I don't like it. And then they start going, wait, it's actually kind of cool around here. And they start growing really well. If they got the nutrients, that's where they start to think it's pretty cool around there. But in sterile new gravel, even with the root tabs, it's hard. Because what happens is you put these roots in, right? And you go, well, I put 3 root tabs. Like, yeah, but the roots literally might be not even touching it. So it can't even utilize it yet. But as those roots keep fanning out, like once that plant's been there for a few months, the roots are on out all around, right? Well, anywhere you put a root tab, it's going to go, heck yeah, give me some of that. And that's why they typically do well once they settle into your tank. And fish poop, all in my gravel, you put the roots in everywhere, it's going, ooh, yeah, give me some of that, because it's everywhere. Where if I just take new gravel and I go root tab, root tab, root tab, root tab, root tab, root tab, the roots could still be like, oh, all of them are missing it. Like, dang it. Oh no, Tyler, you're trolling me. Over the years, you've talked about an incredible fish. The minute you said that, I was like, I knew an incredible fish. You're on the hunt for an orange platy from Hawaii and a gunmetal goldfish. Have I found anything close? No. It was a Variatus platy, by the way, which is slightly different than a platy. And the gunmetal goldfish, yeah, you can find those every once in a while, and I really did like that fish. I wish I never sold it when I did ship fish online. But the orange platy, is there another fish I can even think of? Imagine orange like the orange from Sunkissed the drink, right? Isn't that orange soda? Like an orange soda, but it's got the metallic scales of like the neon rosy barb. So you know how it's got that, like they've got a version that's kind of like orangey pink, and they've got a red one, but take really, really intense orange with the metallic scale. It looked like if someone had painted a lowrider with candy flake paint where they put in like just infinite flake in it, where it just really shined and sparkled. It was on, I don't know what trait that was, but I've never seen it in another fish. And that's why it haunts me of like, there's one of two things going on, by the way. Either A, it's that magical, or B, I have built it to like another level in my mind. And if I ever saw it again, I'd be like, that thing's amazing. I remember being better though. Because that does happen sometimes. You start, like, you're looking for something so so rare that you're building up of cooler and older and all that. Let's see here. Yeah, I was looking up like, oh, I missed James. And I was like, I just answered that question. So sometimes I'm inadvertently getting trolled. The other thing that happens a lot too that I definitely have seen is if people have any internet problems, like me when we're driving home or just you have slow internet at home, it will buffer and lag you. And real time, I've answered the question, but you might be 15 minutes behind in the live stream. So you're going to keep asking the question going, hey, he's not answering my question. Meanwhile, I answered it 9 minutes later, but you don't know that yet. So, and I've seen it just happen where I've been watching someone else live. So like, wait, I'm not live? What happened here? So, what are my thoughts on blueberry snails? Awesome. I got them in my tank over there. I fell in love with them. Chris Lukup discovered them. And to the best of my knowledge, he's naming them after me. So originally we were trying to figure out how we're going to get these into the country. He had them, there was tons of babies at the wholesaler he got them for and all that. And I was falling in love with them. Like, these are the perfect snail. They look cool. They breed at a slow pace. They're live bearers. I'm into live bearers, all that stuff, right? And I was like, well, we'll just have to, go home and I'll re-up on my import permit and we will get them shipped over. He'll ship me some, right? Well, I got home and like 4 days later, Dean was like, hey, I was at this local store, Moonlight Aquatics, and they have blueberry snails. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was going to go through so much effort. And I was like, well, I better go see. And sure enough, he did. That guy was importing, and I think he's still got some, by the way. Moonlight Aquatics, and he does ship, by the way. And he has a retail partner store, by the way. So you could get some of those. They're like $12 a piece or something like that before shipping. But I really love those snails. I've only made like one baby maybe, so I might have to get a few more. I lost one. I think I got 6. I lost one. I got one baby. They don't act like normal snails to me. And what I mean by that is normal snails, I could throw in like an algae wafer and the snails would be like, ooh, I'm all about that. These are acting, in my opinion, more like Tylonesian rabbit snails, where they really want to eat other people's poop. And you put in food, and they're just like, I'd have to be pretty hungry to go eat that. No one's even pooped that out yet. These guys acting very much the same. They want to eat slime and just other stuff and not prepared foods. So I think that's kind of where I went wrong, because I put them into their own tank going, ooh, I'll just feed them and I'll really enjoy them and make sure no one attacks their babies. And then I think being in a symbiotic tank, which like some of the snails and shrimp have that symbiotic relationship where they eat each other's poop and stuff, and it's really beneficial for them. I think that is leading to a much better output now. So no problems, James. Just glad we answered your question, buddy. Yeah, Candy also has some. Yeah, they're not normal snails, which is kind of even a step cooler, right? In the fact that, like, yeah, I'm just buy a snail. And you're like, ooh, doing something different. That's why we love nature. It's like, I thought all snails did this. No, they don't. Okay, learning stuff. So, yeah, Dan, I got 2 of them from him, and they buried themselves for about a week. Yeah, they're a different, as nature does. They're not all the snails are the same. They're different, and I'm loving learning about them. Have I heard of glow-in-the-dark limpets from New Zealand? No, I haven't. I still daydream, or not, I still dream, really, about setting up a terrarium with those, like, bioluminescent glow-in-the-dark mini mushrooms that you can grow in a terrarium. Those sound awesome. But every time I really look into them, every source, you get people like comments like, yeah, they never glowed for me. They never grew, or they never did this, they never did that. And I'm like, oh, well. I'm a terrarium novice, and most things like, well, if they're easier to do, everybody doing it because they look awesome. Speaking of snail food, do you recommend taking food out of the tank to prevent waste, or should I let them finish it no matter how slow? I'm lazy. I'm gonna let them just finish it. I don't take food out. I feed. My goal is to feed an aquarium. So just because the snails aren't finishing it doesn't mean you won't have an nocturnal finish it later. Doesn't mean it won't break down and feed the plants near it, that kind of stuff. I feed the aquarium, not specifically this animal needs to eat this thing. Now, that doesn't mean I don't go out of my way and be like, well, I've got a lot of snails and shrimp in this tank. I'm gonna put some shrimpy sticks in there. Now, that being said, if you have very soft water without a lot of minerals in it, you might want to feed some shrimpy, like extreme shrimpy sticks anyway, because the calcium in the fish and snail and shrimp poop will help fertilize the plants. So, but if you can step back and you go, what does my tank need? Not just what does this specific animal need, like what does my tank need? Makes feeding a lot easier. And that's where I end up mixing stuff up and just, trying stuff and all that. Have I ever used chitin inhibitors in a small pond to try and help eliminate dragonfly larvae? I haven't. Yeah, I don't know. Like the only thing I've ever done is like the mosquito dunks. It's that bacteria that helps fight off the mosquitoes. I've done that before, but I've never worked with that, with a product that would prevent dragonfly larvae. I also kind of love dragonflies, even though they can be predatory on fish. I have this weird mindset, is what I'm going to call it, that nature has more rights, or at least the same rights as I do to be there. So if a dragonfly comes by and lays its egg in there and it's attacking some of the fish that I bred, that's so be it. If a raccoon is eating some of my fish, like I'll try to deter it, but he has every right, just like I do, to be there. So I also enjoy the challenges of like, oh, you sneaky guy. How am I gonna make sure you don't eat all of them? Like that's my goal. Dicrosis filamatosa still just wild caught? Mostly, yeah. There's very few people that actually, they can be bred, but they don't have big spawns and not a lot of people are doing it. So I would say, I bet you at least 90% are still wild caught. Yeah. What's my favorite type of fancy goldfish? Oof. I feel like I fall in love with Arandas a lot because they get extra big. And I really do love ranchus, but I don't love like trimming the wens on either of them. So I look for ones that maybe develop small wens, or the lineage has less eye problems than others. Not eye problems, but like the hood or the wen growing over the eyes. I try to minimize that. I've trimmed them before. I don't enjoy it, so I try to minimize ever having to kind of surgically get involved with the fish. But I do love them, and I think they're beautiful. I love looking at them. If you guys maybe have seen another video, I don't intend to keep them again, though, until I could find a real mentor, local breeder, someone that has a nice, good breakthrough to change the way I keep goldfish, fancy goldfish like that. Oh, no. Corey G says, so I impulse bought $6 silver. I know, bad Corey. Now they ate all my Anubias and Crinum in my 30-gallon, leaving nothing but the driftwood. Minimum tank size for 6 underwater goats. Hashtag flu, I'll be tripping. Depending on the exact type of silver dollars, they can get chunky. Most times we end up stunning them out like at this. If my personal opinion, the minimum tank size to have them be reasonably good pets for you long term, it's like a 55. Longer tank, but bigger tank, sure, definitely. We can always advocate for that pretty much with our animals. But you could also convince me that, well, I've only got a 40 breeder and I love doing the maintenance on it. Would they live in there? They would, yes. It would be like, yep, you got a Great Dane, you're super active, you take it hiking all the time, you live in an apartment, it'll work fine. That'll be fine. But if I was doing it, a 55, I like to give them that extra foot to kind of get back and forth action a little bit. It's a bummer they ate all your plants, because you can get some of them that don't eat all the plants. They definitely And I'm not saying this 'cause you might be wasting money, but you could try to get them on a heavy veggie diet, lots of spirulina, lots of that kind of stuff, feed them a lot, then try to introduce, Java ferns and Anubias again and see if they'll keep from eating it all, but they also might just chow it right down, which would be a bummer. Corey, can you help Dan's fish with Aleopteris perchardi red? What can I help? I have some. I bought 6 of them, but help in what way? Yeah, so Corey says they didn't touch any plants for 3 months, and all of a sudden they ate them in 3 days. In my experience from keeping them in the stores and stuff, and from some customers, fish in general will get what they need. And so if you weren't feeding, like that fish, if I had that fish in my care, I would be feeding something like some spirulina flake. I'd also be feeding some cichlid excel. I'm trying to think what else I might mix into that thing. But with them getting enough veggie in their diet, they're less likely to turn to the plants. So that's what I would make sure that's part of my staple feed. And then I'd probably be doing like some spirulina brine shrimp frozen as well. What's up with the flu ball hashtag? What I miss? It's been a long journey over the last 10 years. And for many years, I would work with Fluval and we'd be like their number one dealer and we'd do stuff, but they would like keep me out of stock for like 8 months. So I'd be like, they're tripping. I don't know what is up with them. Or they would just make weird decisions. Like a good example of Fluval be tripping would be, why do they have like 2 or 3 different sizes of UV sterilizers and 2 or 3 different sizes of tubing between the FX4, FX6, and their 409 line, I think now? Like they should streamline and just make it all one system, but they don't because Fluval be tripping. That's kind of the brief backstory on it. Have I ever kept rabbit snails? I have, yes. I've read conflicting information on whether they will chow on plants or not. I personally believe they will eat plants a little bit. However, in the planted tanks that I've kept, I've never had problems keeping the plants thriving and booming and having to trim while also keeping rabbit snails. So now I'm sure you could be like, well, I've got 76 rabbit snails in a 10-gallon and only 1 plant. Like, yep, that ratio probably is not going to work. I would, if someone was asking me to explain a little bit better, I just thought of a better analogy. It might be saying like, do my dogs eat grass? Sometimes they will. If they have an upset stomach, look at them, they're eating plants. But they never eat enough grass that it would ever affect my yard, right? Now, them going pee and poo in the yard, that's a different story. But them going, oh, I'm going to eat a little bit, a cat or a dog doing that would never, in my experience, be enough in your yard to make a tangible difference. Because if they did, I'd probably have more dogs than cats and mow less. I'd be like, great, you're like goats. I like this. Let's see here. We're almost, I'm going to cut it 2 hours. I got work I got to do. I got emails and messages stacking up because I don't normally stream on a Wednesday. What do I think? Oh, that's a word I don't even know. Hypoleuterus compressa. I'm obsessed with that fish. I'll take a look at it real quick. Chances are when I don't know a fish, I'm not impressed by it. It's not because I have to know it to be impressed. It's just if it's super cool, a lot of times I've seen it. Oh, Empire Gudgeons. Yeah, I basically hate gudgeons. I don't know why. They seem more snippy than I like. Very beautiful fish. Worth spawning if you do it. Yeah. And a lot of times I don't even know why. Just some fish catch your eye. Some do, some don't. Some catch other people's eye. And I don't know. I just don't love that one. Yeah, Corey gets a herd of chihuahuas to mow my lawn. If they mowed my lawn, we literally would start. My wife always jokes about starting like a chihuahua rescue, just because she loves the derpiest of chihuahuas, and I do as well. But yeah, we'd get the toothless ones that have their tongue hanging out. So we'd have 19 chihuahuas and still have to mow the lawn. That's how we would end up, even if they did eat grass. That's totally how we would end up. Is that a new hat? It is a new hat. I paid well, I say too much money, but with shipping, this thing was like 43 or 46 bucks. Facebook purchase that got me. Random company. I was like, strangely on brand for me. The three-eyed Simpson fish in a new, like in colors I like for the summer, hit me at the right time. You got me. You got me. Aloha from Maui. Thank you for all the great advice over the years. Love all the plants and products I've gotten from Aquarium Co-op over the years. Appreciate all of your team members. Yeah, well, thank you, Yoshino. Yeah, I get to go to, well, actually, I will be going to Maui. I won't be telling you when, but I'll be in Maui this summer sometime. Recharge my batteries, get into that salt water and hate the salt water out when it dries on me. But yeah, recharging the batteries. Every trip I've ever taken to Hawaii, Maui was all I've ever been actually. I come back super recharged, in tune with nature, spend quality time with the wife, just get away from it all, come back going, yeah. So I find it to be very beneficial for me, and I'm looking forward to it. We haven't taken a vacation in like 18 months, which 18 months is the longest time. I went a lot of years without taking any vacation when I first started the business, but now, back then, between now and then, like there was stress, and if that stress level's here, and I wasn't taking vacations, but now stress levels, like I'd have to get on the roof to be like, yeah, it's way up there, like the stress levels. And it's just because, you know, back then you're like, I could lose my job and I wouldn't have money to pay my bills. And now it's like, oh, we just signed something that's $1 million. If it doesn't work out, I lose $1 million. And it's like, that's financial ruining me. You know, it was both my wife and I had to personally guarantee the new warehouse. So if it all goes horribly, we basically financially go bankrupt from it. So the weight of those decisions, not in the same realm as like, well, I think I'll try out $300 worth of this food in my retail store. Not in the same league, because that $300 goes horrible, I can make $300 again. You start losing millions, there's not a lot of avenues in the world for people to make millions, like myself included. Like a lot of work, a lot of dedicated people, a lot of long days, winning, you know, orders. A lot of orders where you're like, sweet, we made $1.12 on that order. Like, we just got to do that a lot. Let's keep doing that. Repetition. Let's do it. What's a good sign I should dose your new easy potassium? Look for pinholes. If you have pinholes in your plant leaves, mostly Anubias and Javaferum, but other plants can get it too, that would be a sign you need it. The odds are most of you will not need that. So I like to be very clear there, because I write a very fine line between Corey says he's a hobbyist, but then he says buy all of his stuff. And so I try to be very, very transparent in that I only want you to buy our products if they make sense and will actually help you. If you own a competitor's product, use that. If you got some in the closet, use that. If you don't need it, don't buy it. But if you did need it and you had that use, then I would say, please buy it from us. Yeah, that's because I know that my job is to put a sales pitch on. That is my job. I'm at work right now. But I try to blend it as much as I can of like, I would give you the advice just like I'm your friend. And if it makes sense, buy from me. If it doesn't, do not buy from us. Do I have a schedule for live streams? I don't. At the moment, it has been unplannable. Instead, I go, like I almost went live yesterday, but then I had an emergency meeting. Didn't get to do it. Today, I go, I think I got time. So instead, yesterday, emergency meeting, and then I started breaking down this tank. And then today, I was like, should I finish catching the 2 fish, start planting and moving fish? Or should I live stream? And I was like, I kind of want to live stream. We got new products. I kind of just want to chill. This is kind of a chill time. My job for Anubias are unhappy without extra potassium. Well, load them up. I just ordered 2 sponge filters from your shop, and I was wondering, the green tube, is it sectioned, or do I just cut it if it's too long? Do I have a new kit? It's sectioned. I can probably grab a kit from down here. 1 second. You probably won't get a kit. Yours will come with the sponge filter, but this will be the kit that will, it will show you what it can do. So you've got, you can make it super duper long, right? I'll get in there. And so the top parts, these two parts are adjustable. So you've got this part here that adjusts. And then you've also got this part that can adjust. So our goal when we designed this was this with the sponge filter, right? Can basically do a 55-gallon tank. I'm doing that in a 150-gallon tank, but I didn't add any pieces. So I'm doing basically any normal size big tank. You start getting a 210-gallon, 300-gallon, like you might have to add an extra piece, right? But if you go, hey, I got a smaller tank. Well, great. Now you can just you don't have to run all these pieces. You could go, let's delete these two. And then you could go, well, I got a pretty small tank. Like, okay, bring that in. Oh, it's even smaller. Bring that in. If your tank is smaller than that, then you'd have to cut. And what you end up doing is you end up cutting this piece down, right? You cut that piece down. And then you also cut this piece down. You technically, you got to cut like 3 pieces down. If you're making a real shorty, you got to cut like here, here, and here. But that's an extreme use of smalls. If you got to go, because smalls are a little bit shorter than the nanos. So you get a couple inches that way. And yeah. So, and if you got extra pieces, you could use this on the next big build type of deal. But yeah, those pieces come with the sponge filters at this point. All right, it's 2:06. I'm doing a brief scan. How does the airline bubble? We can't have an air stone. This has an air collar. You could make the worst system ever and still put an air stone in there, but the air collar, in my opinion, is a much more efficient unit. You get more uniform bubbles. You don't have to put the air down through the center, which also helps flow as well. Did any of my aquariums with did any of your aquariums from Custom Aquariums come with the seamless sump option? If so, is it worth it? Only one did. I never set it up. We sold it in the retail store. I'm very intrigued by the seamless sump options. I think they're a little overpriced for what they are, but they did all the R&D on it, and I do believe them to be good systems. If I was looking for a system that had sumps, my next system will use seamless sumps because I really want to try them out. I've seen other people use them, and I've seen them in the shows, and I got to play around with them. I do think I wouldn't just buy their standard setup. You can buy like each unit, right? And I would go with like extra filter socks, not so much like filter trays. I'd probably like, give me more water and I can just put media in there. Yeah. So, because some of them, like the filter tray ones are, kind of a lot more expensive than just like the normal tub one. So I would probably do a little bit of customization there. But as far as an off-the-shelf solution where you go, I want to spend money and have it show up, I think the seamless sump ones are the best. I've built my own custom sumps. I've bought lots of off-the-shelf solutions, whether it's from saltwater stores, freshwater stores. I've tested stuff. And in my opinion, I put my hands on these. I like them the best of the stuff that I've seen. Now, everything used for 5 years, you will learn what you don't like about it. And no perfect is ever 100% perfect. But I don't, because I haven't used it for 5 years in my own home, I don't know, that's the one thing I don't like about it. So, how does the air collar work? There's always questions like this that perplex me, because I'm just like, well, I mean, what do you want to know about it? Like, so the air goes inside, right? So you pump air in, and on the inside of this collar, there's a bunch of small holes. And with those small holes, the air goes up, right? So then now we've got this little miniature one we've made here. We get that in there. So as the air goes up, it sucks water through the sponge. Now, the longer you can keep the air going up, the stronger the suction, and the smaller the bubbles are, wall going up, the better the flow. So if you turn it up a lot and it's going glug, 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 really inefficient, loud, and moves barely any water. If you get all of these little bubbles going uniform, you know, so it would be like if you're trying to get through a door and you get everybody trying to go at once, you go, ooh, ooh, and no one's really getting through. Like maybe one person gets through, ooh. Where now, if you have 6 lines and it's 1, 1, 1, 1, you're just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's all very uniform, and now people are going through really fast because it's got the pattern and not running into each other going ooh, ooh. So yeah, there's one running right there. There's one running there. They're actually pumping it up out of the water because the water level's down a couple inches. So, but that being said, I'm using a linear air piston pump, so I've got a lot of air capacity to be able to do that. A normal little air pump will not lift out of the water with that much vigor. Just a standard air pump. You would need a linear piston pump. You really want to get it cranking. All right. Would you have any suggestions for doing live streams throughout a fish room? Would I have any suggestions for doing live streams throughout a fish room? I would just, if I was going to do that, I would just use a phone. Seems easy enough. A phone with a battery pack and like a mobile tripod system. It's kind of similar to how I film my videos, really. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to call it. It's been a little over 2 hours. I got some work I got to catch up on. I'll try to do it again soon, probably next week sometime. As it's my job, please buy all the things if you need them. Remember to take some time for family, compliment somebody this week, visit our RPP stores, join our Facebook group if you want to hang out with other fish nerds. That Facebook group's like always on my second screen. That's why I don't have a Discord, because I know I would never get anything done. It'd be too real time. So instead, I can like work for 10, 15 minutes, look over and go, oh yeah, I've got 6 comments. Here, okay, I'll answer that one. Those other 5, mostly been answered by other people. So I've always got that up and going. And yeah, Mondays are now our video day. Sometimes there'll be some on Fridays as well, but we moved it to Monday because it's better. The more of you that order on Monday, the better it is for you guys. You guys get faster shipping because they're business days, right? Now, we're shipping all the time, but moving through the network, it moves through on business days. And so if you guys order Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, depending on where you live, if you live in Washington like me, order on a Monday, you might get it Friday. Or order on a Sunday night, you'll get it Friday. If you live in Ohio, order any day because you're going to get like the next day. So there's a bunch of you that get that service, but the further away you live, the earlier in the week you order, the more likely you will get it that same week and not have the extra weekend delay. So thanks for hanging out. Buy all the stuff. See you next time. And thanks for supporting us. All the super chats, all the memberships, all the people that hung around all day, hit that like button, leaving comments, watching the videos, supporting my dream and all our employees. So thank you so much, and we'll see you around.